Hello and welcome to the latest edition of the Business Spotlight interview. Today I am happy to be joined by Glyn Roberts, Chief Executive at Retail NI. Glyn, delighted you could join us today. How are you?
I'm fantastic. I'm delighted to be here.
Great, great. Thank you for coming and joining us. Why don't you share with us who you are, what you do, and for how long you've been doing it?
Well, I'm Chief Executive of Retail Northern Ireland, and we are a trade body which represents wholesalers, retailers, and suppliers to our sector. We represent just over 2,000 businesses, mainly independent retailers, but we have some significant players in the wholesale sector as well within our membership. So we're passionate about our high streets and our independent retail sector, where I think hopefully I think our members have very much become thought leaders about what a 21st century high streets look like. And I've been doing it now for 15 years. So time flies. It really does fly when you're having fun. So it's a great organization to work for, a great board, which is, I think, always embracing change and new ways of doing things. And of course, it reflects that in retail, change is the only context. If you stand still in retail, you stop innovating, then sadly you're closing your doors.
Very good. Look, appreciate the summary there. Excellent. And I guess, like you said, retail is constantly moving, constantly changing, and under an awful lot of different pressures now than it would have been 15 years ago. So who is your sort of ideal customer for retail NI?
Well, I suppose my customers are our members,
Yeah,
so
yeah,
we've obviously got a battle for every single direct debit. And it is a challenge when you're leading an organization with over 2,000 members. We have members in every village, town, and city. And it's not just about the representation of the lobby, and that's a big part of what we do. It's also helping members with everyday problems, whether that's uh, energy bills, whether that's public realm, whether that's even helping members that are businesses disrupted with roadwork. So
yeah.
we're doing the big ticket stuff, we're meeting ministers, we're doing that all the time, but we're also doing the bread and butter stuff, helping members with everyday problems. And I suppose one thing that, unlike other trade bodies who would just refer you to helpline, I think we provide a very hands-on service. So I make sure all of our members have my mobile. You might think that's a crazy thing to do, but it's not, because I think it means that they're not getting some helpline somewhere. They're getting someone who hopefully is on the ground, understands their issues, and hopefully can do something about them.
Excellent. So what's been your biggest learning since you've been involved in it?
Well, I suppose you never stop learning, and I think that you running a trade body is still a competitive business because there are other business groups out there who are bigger and more resources. So you've got to be, I think, on top of your game. You've got to make sure that you're constantly in listening mode, listening to what the concerns are of your members. And more importantly, I think you've got to make sure that you ultimately you do deliver. So I think it is about keeping your ear to the ground. It's about keeping constant listening, but also changing and adapting. And I always try and do at least maybe one course a year at the Clinton School and the Management School in Queens. And
Yes,
even though it's
yes.
only a couple of days, because I still think that it's you never stop learning, and I think it's about constantly changing and adapting and innovating. And I think that hopefully that I've survived 15 years, so I suppose in one sense I must be doing something right.
Very good. And every success for the next 15. So the next question, I've had lots of different responses on it from people that love doing what they're doing and have always wanted to do it, to people who had never even dreamt of doing it, but they're loving what they're doing at the minute. So when you were growing up, is this something that you always wanted to do?
No, I suppose interesting. I failed my 11 plus. I went to Orangefree Boys High, and I can always remember they didn't do A level. So when I got my GCSE results, my career advice was the army, the white youth training scheme, or the shipyard. And I said, like, I want to do A levels, I want to go to university. And I saw the look in that careers teacher just saying, well, and I that in one sense, I thought, the hell with it, I'm going to go for this. So I did my levels at Belfast Met, as a Castlereagh College was then. Did a degree in political science, and I suppose the rest is history. I'm a great believer in the transformational nature of education and skills. I'm a former chair of Colleges NI, the representative body for the six FE colleges, and I thought that the FE colleges, in many respects, are not just there to support business and support owner managers in terms of what skills they need and what skills their staff need. They're also there to help people who maybe have fallen out of the education system, or like me, had no other choice but to leave school at 16 and do my levels at an FE college. And I have to say, the can-do spirit of finding and nourishing and developing the best of you, and encouraging you to do what you do. I think it's always been really good to see what the colleges do now in terms of their A level and level 3 apprenticeships.
Yes.
Not only making sure that industry has well qualified apprentices, but also they're constantly challenging those apprentices. Maybe one day you could do this for yourself. And I think that is where I think in many respects, our colleges and our universities are so important to our economy. And if there's one thing you can't have too much of, that's entrepreneurs. And, in this job, we're working with a lot of new start manufacturers, producers who we're helping with the route to market, who may only really want to maybe have 4, 5, 6 retailers that they want to trade with because they're so small in their stage of their business life cycle. Yes. It means that they really have to start small and grow from there. So, I've never been felt amazed at how important entrepreneurship is to the Northern Ireland economy. And I think sometimes people say, Northern Ireland being a small business economy is a bad thing. I think it's a good thing because it shows we're an entrepreneurs at heart.
Yes, yeah, totally. No, excellent sharing. So what's been the biggest issue that you have faced or overcome?
Oh, goodness. Well, I think that certainly, I think growing up, doing my levels, going to university, I'm from a very working class background, and feeling my 11 plus, and it's something that I've always sort of, I wouldn't say I have a chip on my shoulder about, but it's such a waste of effectively putting young people in the scrap heap at 11 and again at 16. And I think that thankfully the education system has changed now. So that was my biggest challenge, getting to university, getting to the other side. I think it was also a challenge, because when I took this job 15 years ago, I was in my 30s, and it was a challenge because I was coming on the back of a very well-established CEO in his 60s. So that was a challenge, but as I said earlier, 15 years, I'm still there. I've grown retail now from a business or a trade body that had 500 or 600 members to one that is over 2,000 and one of the largest trade bodies in Northern Ireland. So I think you've got to constantly, when you're getting to those figures, it's you just keep on building. You never stop recruiting. But you've also got to make sure that if you're doing a trade body and a business group, you've got to make sure that you're adding value to individuals, that you're there, you've got their back. And I hope that that's what we have.
Excellent. No, sounds like a great track record anyway. And like I said earlier, every success going forward. So what have you learned about yourself during this journey?
I think to embrace change, to constantly challenge yourself, to go outside your comfort zone. And I think that is certainly where, but I think as well, it's important to have fun. It's why I like this job, because it's, having a job which you enjoy and you feel that you're making a difference. And, it was very clear during COVID where that was the biggest challenge that our members faced, because we were constantly engaged in the government, making sure that a lot of the regulations and restrictions weren't too burdensome, and all the time we were constantly, obviously, making sure that our members stayed within the law, but to
Yeah.
make sure that the regulations actually weren't too much of a burden. So, we made sure that things like the rates holiday was over the line, a lot of the support grants, and of course the high street card, the high street voucher as it was known.
Yes.
All
Yeah.
of those initiatives are ones that we worked on. And and I was also reflecting that a lot of our members, our convenience store members, played such an important role during the pandemic, because for many older people and people who, disabled people, people who are vulnerable,
Yeah.
those stores were a lifeline, to make sure that people were having access to food and other products. Of course, the other big shout out is the role of the retail staff. If you looked at during the first lockdown, when there was no vaccines, a lot of governments didn't know what they were dealing with. You had retail staff that were putting their own health and indeed their own family's health at risk by working through, making sure in those convenience stores and the fruit and veg and pharmacy and all those vital stores that people were still able to get food and other important products.
Yeah.
And I think a big shout out to, the retail staff, because there were so many heroes during the pandemic, and I would certainly add retail staff to that list.
Yeah. Totally. They're putting themselves right in the front line, in harm's way, as you would say.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sadly so. But I think that in many respects, whilst there's so many things we can learn from the pandemic, and there were very little of any good things. The one thing that did come out of it was people have a newborn appreciation of the role of independent retailers and the lifeline that they played during that time. So I think it reinforced the community role. And I like to think
Yeah.
that our members, in one sense, are community entrepreneurs, because the community part of what they do is so important. It's not always about the bottom line, and it's all about serving the community. And I think, in many respects, that community entrepreneur role is so much more important now post pandemic.
Yeah. And I think it highlighted so much the importance of buying local and supporting local.
Absolutely, and 70p in every pound that you spend with an independent retailer is recycled around the rest of the economy. So, you're supporting local producers, local farmers, and indeed our High Street Hero Awards that we do every year are unique from any business group, because it's a public vote for the best independent retailer. And what that does, rather than a panel of judges deciding who wins, it's the customers, the consumers, the shoppers decide who
Yeah.
their favorite independent retailer is and what their favorite high street is. So, and we have seen over 12,000 people voted for High Street Hero Awards, and I think that underlines the, the not just the respect but the value that many consumers in Northern Ireland have for local independent retailers and their local high streets.
Sure. Sure. Yeah. So obviously all of those retailers, independent retailers and owners inspire both of us. But who else inspires you in business today?
I think that it gets back to how much of a challenge it is to start a business in Northern Ireland. And we work with some amazing entrepreneurs, new start businesses, and that can be a very lonely, challenging time when you're starting the business. And I think it takes tremendous courage. And so those are the people that I've always had a respect. I've 15 years in retail, and I worked for 7 years with the FSB. And so we have worked with over the last 20 years, some tremendous entrepreneurs. But it's that courage to make that leap, not knowing that you're going to get a salary at the end of the month, going the extra mile to make sure your employees are paid. And I don't think we do enough to support new start business. I think that one of the problems at the minute, we're working with a lot of new companies, and when they start off, they're asking, well, who do we go to for help and assistance? I think we need to make it clear. So one of the things that we've said in the context of the review of Invest NI, that we need to create an office for micro and small business, a one-stop shop.
Yeah.
So do you want to start a business? you know, go to access to finance, access to skills, and we've got to make Northern Ireland the best place anywhere in these islands to locate, start, and to scale up a business. And I think that that is certainly achievable. And you know, we're actively working with some new distilleries, new breweries, new manufacturers, new dairies, connecting them up to our members. And so, in many respects, Retail and I has moved from just a retail body to a supply chain body.
Yes, yeah,
And so it means we're working actively to grow the entire supply chain,
yeah,
and to make sure that that 70p in every pound is well spent.
yeah. Excellent, excellent. So, do you have any sort of favorite books or podcasts that you would turn to for motivation, or are you always motivated? You're just self-motivated?
I would say yes, I'm self-motivated. I think that never underestimate the power of encouragement. And, you know, I think throughout my journey and having my parents' support and encouragement is just so important. And I think that, you know, we've always got to do that. And I hopefully the team that I lead within Retail and I, you know, it's about empowering them. It's about ensuring that they've got their own career path, and above all else, that they have fun with it. So I think it is the power, the transformational nature of education skills, but it's also about encouragement. And I think that's probably, you know, I think if a leader or a chief executive doesn't empower, enthuse, and encourage their staff, then, you know, I don't think that business will ultimately go very far.
Sure. No, I agree with that. So for yourself then, do you have like any key books that you would recommend to people, or any key podcasts or something like that there?
I wouldn't say that I would have I think a key book as such. I've always been a tremendous fan of Churchill. I think, you know, someone who went through so many ups and downs in his life.
Yeah.
But he came up with this wonderful phrase, you know, that about failure. You know, and what he says, his definition of success is going from failure to failure, and learning from that. So I think that's certainly, you know, and I think in one sense it taps in a wider issue. If you look at the culture in the UK is very different to the Americans. You
Yeah.
know, whilst it's well accepted that you can start a business or two businesses and fail, and there's a real sense that fair play to you for doing that. Here, if you fail, there's still this culture that always a failure, or he or she is a failure. And I think we've got to change that culture.
Yeah.
And I think that's really why I think we need to be an ecosystem of innovation.
Yeah.
You know, we need to be ensuring that entrepreneurship is a key component of our education system, because, you know, it's in many respects when we're talking to educators, it's not just about making sure that we have well-trained staff that's going to support our members. I need the next generation of independent retailers and innovators.
Yeah.
And I think I think really we've got to do more to help people take that leap, and make it as easy as possible. And I think that, you know, we've also got to, I think we talk a lot about startup. We also need to talk about scale up as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Some things that we've been talking to the Department of Finance, and obviously we need to have stronger back to do this. Is how do we use our rating system to, our business system of business rates to incentivize? So we have suggested, for instance, a scale up rates relief scheme. So if you're a business and you're going to scale up, create new jobs, new investment in the economy, you put this band to the Department of Finance and they write off 6 months of your rates bill. So you're actually incentivizing the rate system. And this is something I saw during COVID, where we made the rates holiday, just how much helpful that was.
Yeah.
So, you know, so we need to be using our rate system to incentivize startup and scale up. And also, for instance, you know, how can we use the rating system to attract more FDI by giving rates holidays to foreign direct investors who are going to locate businesses here, particularly in areas of deprivation and dereliction.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, excellent. And that sort of nicely leads me into the next one, which is what does the future look like, and what do you see as the main challenges going forward?
I think that um, both retail and high streets are going through a period of reconstruction, and you know, as anybody knows, reconstruction can be you can have winners and losers. But I think our high streets and our retail sector is on a journey, and in one sense, you know, this is not rocket science because we know what 21st century high streets should be. They're fun, family friendly destinations, which people want to come back time and time again. They're clean and they're green, they're inclusive, you know, and it's about putting that again that sense of fun back to the high street.
Yeah.
Because how do we take on the Amazons of this world? We create experiences for people that you can't get online. We create high streets that are fun and family friendly, and that people do want to come back time and time again. So from our perspective, it's how do we get government to support that transition, to get them, you know, how do we use our rating system? How do we get government to help? How do we get councils, Stormont, the UK government all pushing in one direction? I'm encouraged we can do it, because I think we've got this can do spirit in Northern Ireland.
Yeah.
That is something that I think there's very few other parts of the UK have in the same way.
Yeah. Yeah. And on that, then, what would you say to anyone thinking of going into business for themselves now?
I think go for it, but also you know that it's not going to be easy. There's going to be sleepless nights, you know, and I suppose it is finding where that gap in the market is. You know, I mean, one of the interesting things is that you know, we work with so many businesses that have some amazing products, but they're either not marketing them right, or they haven't sort of thought, you know, what's the next stages. So, for instance, we had a really, really good company that are really produced ice cream milkshake. But the big challenge for that company, they started to get orders in, is how do they get logistic? Is how do they get their product to the stores? So, what does that mean for their next stage of their business? So, you can have such great products, but unless you're marketing them right, unless you're thinking, well, how do I get this out to, how do I get this product out to stores? So, I think that quite often, really good product, really good ideas, but it's the execution and getting them onto the next level is always going to be the challenge.
Yeah. Yeah. Very good. And finally, then, if you could wind back the clock, what is the best advice that you would give to an 18-year-old you?
I suppose uh, I think probably I should have done more traveling. I think I should have. I did take a year out before I went into university to work for a charity.
Yes.
I think I should have, even though I enjoyed my course at Ulster University, I should have studied abroad. I should have travelled more, because I think travel does broaden the mind.
Certainly.
So I think that, yes, I think that's probably the best if I could time travel back and speak to 18-year-old me is do more traveling. I have traveled since, but I think certainly, I think that that's would have been a, you would, I think would have maybe, I suppose, at that age, maybe a bit more well rounded, and I suppose, I wouldn't say war weary, but a bit more rounded, definitely.
Yeah. Yeah. No, and having had the privilege of traveling, well, I think it's through 49 countries now myself.
Wow.
I would totally agree with you that it's something that I would encourage every young person in Northern Ireland to do, to get out there and see the wider world, and the impact that that has is phenomenal. So, look,
So,
thank you so much for all your insights, the wisdom, and
no,
the
it's been a
knowledge.
pleasure.
Really appreciate it, and look forward to hearing the next part of the story.
Thank you very much.
You're most welcome. Thanks now.